Hello and welcome to the End of the Chain. I'm your host, Samuel McCulloch, and this week, another week in quarantine, I've got Alex Zaidelson coming onto the podcast from Beam. We're going to talk about privacy. We're going to talk about Beam and some of its effects for transactional privacy, and talk all things privacy today. So Alex was a great guest to have on because this is one of the things that he's trying to attack with his privacy coin at Beam. And I'm working from home, so you can hear the babies in the background. I'll be back hopefully in the office at the end of the month, and we'll be on for a good recording. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I really appreciate the listeners that are here and are growing amount of people that are tuning into the podcast. So thank you very much for listening to what we have here at the End of the Chain. I appreciate you guys a lot. So let's hop into the episode. So hi Alexander, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here today.
Hey Samuel, glad to be here in those tumultuous times. Thanks for having me.
So I've actually been really looking forward to this because I am a big privacy advocate, and for my own reasons, right? I think I've said many times on the episode or on the podcast that I used to work as a signals intelligence analyst for the NSA. And so the reason that I was interested in Bitcoin in the first place is because I spent a couple of years just looking at metadata tables and analyzing them and then putting together intelligence reports on them. And so when I came across Bitcoin and its ability to facilitate these permissionless transfers, I was really enthralled by the amount of metadata that it published and kind of the interesting things that you could do with that metadata to tie back to the users, right? And Bitcoin kind of is really the starting point for everything, and it kind of it really is the first step into where you guys have evolved into with Beam. But I think the one thing that it really lacks is that, again, it comes back to privacy, right? So you have these pseudo-anonymous transactions, but at the same time, anyone smart enough with a large enough database and enough access to centralized exchange platforms can put together a relatively good identity map of the entire network and attribute pretty much every user to every single address that has ever connected with any sort of KYC'd entity. And I think that's almost a loss, really. In that true privacy doesn't really exist within the I guess top crypto in this space. So I don't know. I mean, how do you see the kind of overall privacy structure when it comes to crypto?
So it's really interesting that you actually work for the NSA and you understand that Bitcoin or any other open public ledger is actually a treasure trove for an analyst, and a lot of people are built nice businesses out of that. And to me, the fact that Bitcoin is not private is a fundamental bug in the design, and this bug actually hinders the realization of this dream of using Bitcoin as money. Okay, that was like the original goal of Satoshi, was to build electronic cash for businesses to use online, offline, blah, blah. It's not possible. Without privacy, it's just plainly not possible. We're not inventing a new kind of human being. We're not building communism. We want to replace money. Now, without privacy, it's impossible because no private person is willing to share their financials, not how much they're making, not what they're spending and where and when. And definitely not businesses, right? A business with its books 100% open is at a huge disadvantage, right? Because all the competitors know what's going on, what are you buying, where, how much you're paying, how much you're paying your employees, and so on and so forth, right? So this feature, this absence of privacy, is a huge obstacle on the way of cryptocurrency becoming a replacement for money. There are other reasons, of course. It's not that it's only privacy, but without privacy, I don't see how anything can replace money with everyone being able to mine data and to understand what's going on and
Right.
connect the dots.
So I think there's different levels, right? So there's just general transaction privacy where you're shielding. So let's say you want to do it, you're a company and you want to use cryptocurrencies to do your payroll, right? If you're just paying everybody out from one wallet, everybody can see the salaries of everybody else, and maybe that creates some jealousy or confusion amongst your staff, right? And that's a very basic transaction, is to do payroll. So when it comes into these larger transactions, of course, businesses want to shield them from other businesses who may be doing some sort of business intelligence or competitor analysis on them, where they could
and they are all the time, right?
Exactly. But with Bitcoin, everything is completely open, and you see there are a lot of analysts who are tracking, I guess, individual wallets for crypto exchanges.
Yes.
They're also tracking for companies as well too, and I guess you could say that provides auditability, but at the same time, it opens up the inner workings, maybe even confidential inner workings of these companies to the public.
Absolutely, it absolutely does, right? There is, like, one might say that the positive thing is auditability, but the negative thing is that it's you can consider it completely open, right? There are enough companies today that have developed technology of unwinding all this transaction graph and putting it together and presenting it to whoever is willing to pay.
Right. So I mean, but what is is that kind of the limit of privacy that's actually needed? Is just the transactional privacy? Or what about when it comes to, because my big thing, right, is that the economy of the past 20 years, right, past 2 decades, has been built on third-party companies. So Google, Facebook, everything else, essentially taking this metadata and then using that metadata to plug it into some sort of algorithm or or some sort of an algorithm, right, and then pump back out a more enhanced idea of who their customer is, and then use that algorithmic data to deliver better ads or sell services or influence them in certain ways to change their opinions, right, or to vote for certain people, which I think is really dangerous, right? And
absolutely,
you saw that in the last election. So my kind of big question, right, for all of crypto is, how does that get broken, right? Is that, Bitcoin obviously doesn't do it, right, because it's connected to everything. But is it necessary to have this kind of user privacy? I mean, I guess it's like, how do you get to that level of user privacy where users can transact with each other, but third parties are not able to conduct this high level algorithmic dissection of their transactions?
Yeah, so technology-wise, there are several answers. Monero was the first technology, and then Zcash invented a different kind of technology, and then Mimblewimble is the third, the most recent, and probably the best technology to do that because it combines privacy with very good scalability. So technology-wise, it is possible to provide privacy. The only thing that is important in a cryptocurrency system is that you cannot subvert the supply function, right? Because that's what crypto is all about, that you cannot print money. And all those protocols actually solve this problem in this or that way, right? So in Beam, when you transact, there is no identity. There is nothing can be seen on the blockchain. You cannot see who has what amount of money. You cannot know who is sending money to who, and you cannot know the amounts that are being sent. So everything is fully opaque, which is exactly what you would want for a financial system. When I transfer you some money, I don't want anyone to know that this happened. I don't want you to know how much money I have. You don't want me to know how much money you have, and we don't want third parties to know how much was transferred, right? So the privacy is at the center of the receiver and of the amount. All three are important, right? Because if you see the amounts, then you could guess. Because if I transfer you like 499, or a million people transfer 499 to a certain address, or just you see those a lot of those 499 transactions, and you know that there is a certain number of goods that actually cost 499, you can guess who's getting this money. So Beam actually offers all the three.
Yeah, of both at the transactional level, the amount level, and then shielding the user transactions as well too.
Yeah. And again, without that financial system, it cannot run. Like, look at the banking system, right? If the banker knows everything about you, but not anybody else, right? This information, I mean, if we assume they're playing by the rules, right? The information about your business account is not shared, is not published unless you choose to, unless you share it with your auditors or with whoever you have to share it and you want to share it. Right, here we come to the second part of the Beam vision, which is opt-in auditability. Right, because again, if we want businesses to use a financial system, it needs to be confidential, but they need to have a way to share this information with an auditor or with a taxman if they choose to, right? So here we want to give people a choice, right? We don't want the taxman to come and say, okay, I force you or I take this information from you. No, we want everyone to decide who they want to share the information with, and this is actually sovereignty over your information, your finances, right? You can keep them completely confidential, or you can share them with certain people.
Right, and I guess that is, I mean, it's typically how most tax authorities work, is that you have to submit the information, but if they come along and they find that you've lied about your reporting in any way, then they can go after you, right? So,
well, they can also subpoena your bank, right?
Right.
But here in our case, I am my own bank, and I choose whether to share or not to share. So somebody cannot just come in and review my account just because they want to, just because I am of a different political affiliation than the ruling party or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's what happens today with the banking system, right? If I have a bank account in, well, sadly, almost in any country, but let's say in China, and the government doesn't like what I'm doing, they can just go and seize my bank account or review all the transactions and see who I'm dealing with, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I see it as, so like one of the things that I've kind of come to, I don't know, it's just been ingrained in me, is that the emergence of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and other things, it was not just a response to the global crisis at the time, right? It was more of it was also a response to a lack of the ability of people outside of the United States to get access to dollars. Is one of the big reasons that I think there's been such growth, right? Because people want to have a system that is unencumbered by the I guess obtuse regulatory structure that's been put in place by the United States, and just their ability to shut down, I guess, or open up government.
I think. Yeah, I would say it's more about sovereignty rather than about access to dollars, because dollars are you can get dollars anywhere, right, in the world, but it's more about freedom and about sovereignty over your own money, because I think Ricard puts it very well in his book, The Road to Ruin. Like, you think you have money in your bank, you think you have stocks, you think you have some assets in the bank or the brokerage house, but in reality, the moment the government decides to freeze those assets, they're gone, right? And it might decide to do that, like in a situation like now, if the government is short of funds, or what happened during World War II in the States, right? They just they froze accounts, they took all the gold. And with cryptocurrency, it's not possible. It's much, much, much harder. Now, and with confidential cryptocurrency, it's almost impossible, right? Because with Bitcoin, with Bitcoin, I can learn that somebody has Bitcoin and then I can force them to give it away. With a confidential currency like Beam, it's very hard to even know that somebody has it, right?
Right. So, but then if you're, but without that transparency and I think this is one of the things that that kind of allowed Bitcoin to grow into the thing that it is today, right? Is that this pseudo transparency also gives some credence to the regulators to think that they can track and find and prosecute people, and that once you have systems where you have full confidentiality and full privacy, you lose the ability to for any legal recourse to be had.
Well, I wouldn't agree with that 100% because all the regulated places have to perform KYC, have to, all the exchanges or most of them at least when you register, if you perform KYC, the government can get information about your transactions from those exchanges. And the fact that Bitcoin is fully open just made it a little bit more convenient for the governments, to try and track all kinds of things. I don't think they would have banned it without this. It's not Bitcoin's success. Let me put it this way: it's not because it is transparent.
Yeah.
It's not, and it's not that the governments did not forbid it because it is transparent. They did not forbid it because it's really hard to forbid, and they are afraid to confront so many people. Now look at cash, right? Cash doesn't have any traceability, right? And still, in the States and a lot of other places, like people use it like crazy. Yes, there is a movement in a lot of countries, including Israel, to curb the use of cash, specifically because it's not traceable, and the governments don't like that. But it's not really happening that in real life. There's still tons and tons of cash. It's hard to totally forbid it. So back to Bitcoin, I think this transparency is more of a bug, and it's not the reason for success. Maybe it's a reason for a little bit lower. How do you, like if the government's fighting it a little bit less than they would have otherwise.
Yeah. So I mean, how has the response been that you've seen from? Has there been any pushback against Beam in any countries?
No, not at all. In general, the only real pushback against confidential currencies was in Japan a couple of years ago, and it was the aftermath of the Neo hack, when hackers stole some funds from an exchange there, a lot of funds actually, in Japan, and then transferred it and siphoned it away using Monero. So, and the government said, we don't want exchanges to keep confidential currencies because somebody could steal them and then we won't be able to help the investors. And actually, that was the reasoning, right? The reasoning why Japan banned trading of confidential currencies was not because they're used for drug trafficking or because it's hard to trace individual businesses or people. It's just because they said it can be dangerous because if somebody steals those funds, we have no way to track them. Okay, so
I would think that there's ways to track Monero.
Well, There are some attempts there, and there are ways, probabilistic ways to track Monero. That is correct, but they're not as developed as Bitcoin, and tracing is not as good. But when the Japanese government took that decision, they assumed that it's impossible to trace or almost impossible to trace.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So Beam is in a better position in that regard. But again, the decision to block in Japan was not because what was just to protect, at least that's what they were saying, just to protect their investors from their funds being stolen without any recourse, right? That was one instance. Another instance was several months ago in Korea. There was like some noise about the government banning privacy coins. Eventually, I think only one or two exchanges really delisted privacy coins in Korea, and they're still traded on some others. So there is no real pushback, let's put it this way,
Yeah.
from the governments. And I think it's not really smart to do it because by pushing it back, it may result in greater demand for that asset, and it may result in much more attention, which they don't want. I mean, it actually play. If somebody is forbidden, then a lot of people start getting interested. Wow, what is this thing that the government doesn't like so much? Maybe it's actually good. So let's try and get some of it. And it's eventually counterproductive. And I don't think it's also enforceable. I mean, you can forbid the exchanges from trading those points, but you cannot forbid people from trading them. Like at Beam, we have this atomic swap capability where you don't actually need any exchange to buy and sell Beam for Bitcoin or Litecoin or Quantum coins. You just do it from your own wallet. You publish an offer, and then there is like a taker, and the transactions happens without any third party. So you cannot really forbid people from trading confidential coins, trading Beam for sure, and definitely not from having Beam because you cannot check every phone and every brain for the 24 hours, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still extremely nascent, right? We really haven't figured out what the most acceptable level of privacy is when it comes to cryptocurrencies. Even though Monero is coming up to its 10-year, well, it'll be 10 years in a couple of years, but nobody's really settled on where that happy medium is. Is it?
You mean this acceptable by who? By the governments or by?
Yeah, generally, right? Generally, yeah, like the general acceptance of because you need acceptance from governmental structures to be able to propagate and to have it grow within businesses and to.
Well, I think the answer is sort of a compromise. Look at Zcash, for example. They chose a way of having just two separate subsystems. Zcash has really great privacy technology. ZK Snarks, probably the best. The scalability is not great, actually poor, but the technology itself, the cryptography is amazing. But I don't know if you know, like over 95 or 98% of transactions on Zcash are open, are not private at all.
They're unshielded.
Okay. They're not shielded. So, I mean, so what kind of privacy currency is that really? But the interesting thing with Zcash is that they have those two modes, and that's why they present to the governments and regulators that there is a way to be non-shielded, and then it's acceptable and it's playing nicely with the government. So and Zcash actually, and I think there was a very interesting blog post by Zuko about his meetings with some government officials in New York, where one of the officials said, "Guys, I don't want to share my bank statements with anyone. So what Zcash is doing is actually okay. It makes perfect sense." Right. So their approach was to create like two separate kinds of transactions. Our approach at Beam is to make everything private by default, but let people actually, if they choose so, to expose their transactions to the government. Okay, and then eventually, as this ecosystem becomes more and more evolved, the government may say, okay, you're a business. I know you trade in Beam, so I want to have a report, and show me your financials. It's the same thing that happens today with cash, right? Cash is not traceable. A lot of businesses still use cash, right? But there are cash registers. There are, those slips, and there is a lot of technology around it. And then you can receive a lot of cash from your customers or partners or whatever, and then you report it to the government. So crypto should be like that.
Yeah, I guess, but yeah, I mean, they're trying to make cash obsolete, which is one of the things that I don't really like
I think there will be I think the biggest movement, the biggest success it had so far is in Sweden. In Germany, I hear that like 50% of the people hold onto their cash, and I don't think like try to get the greenbacks from the Americans. It won't fly.
Yeah,
It just won't fly.
Because the people that are affected the most by a movement to a cashless society are those people at the bottom. People that can't afford a smartphone or that don't have access to a bank account. And all of a sudden, when nobody's taking cash anymore, they no longer have ways to interact with the economy.
It's both that and also people who are just conscious about their privacy and who are distrustful towards the system. And I'm sure there are a lot of people like that in the States. People in Germany, from what I read, there's also a lot of people like that. And also people who say, you know what, I don't want to pay any fees to any bankers or anyone or credit card companies. I'm perfectly fine with my euro notes in my pocket, and I don't need any intermediaries. I just want to, use my money.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I'd like to see a mixture, right? I mean, I always think that transactional privacy is that, if you want to pay in cash for stuff, I mean, you shouldn't have to make every transaction available to the government, right? To track you.
Yeah, of course, because this information is dangerous. This information is dangerous because if somebody gets the list of your transactions, the full list, then they can start asking all kinds of embarrassing questions like, why did you go to this liquor store? Right? We talked about it before we started recording, like the liquor stores. Why did you go to the liquor store? Whatever. Why do you go there so much? Right? You don't want people to know where you spend your money because then they can start ridiculing you or something worse. Right? That's privacy.
Right. I mean, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Is that if all these third-party companies that are taking your data and then putting it into these algorithms to come back with scores on you as a person, right? If you're engaging in, I guess, what they deem negative behavior, it would affect your score, and then you would be hurt transactionally because maybe they raise your fees or they don't provide you a service.
Yeah, it's like a very old example of airplane tickets being more expensive if you're logging in from a Mac computer than from a Windows PC. I mean, I'm not even sure they're doing it anymore, but there was a period when they were doing that because people with Macs were obviously more affluent. So, and that's just a very simple example. What you mentioned is what China is doing, right? They're just rating people by what they're doing online and offline because they also know where people are going, and then you can just shrink people. Again, you were at the NSA, so maybe you know what. I would not be surprised if they're doing something similar. That's from what I read in Snowden's book. Like all the information is there. Like you get everything and anything about who person talks to, what they're posting, where they're going. So you can also rank them. Hopefully, it's not on the same scale as it is in China.
I mean, I would expect it to be the same, right? I mean, the only thing the Chinese have is that this data is used in a more the ability of the data collection is used in a more public way. So it's probably safe to say that the United States has the same data collection and analysis capabilities. It's just that they're bound by law not to use it in any negative way against a person unless they're involved in some criminal scheme or have committed a crime somehow.
Sorry, say it again. I missed it for a second.
So in China, I think they're just more public about how they use this data. So they'll build it into apps, right? So I know there's an app where you can see on a map where people who have negative social credit scores are at any given time. And so you can try to stay away from them. And that, if that sort of thing was instituted in the United States or any Western country, there'd be huge blowback. So what we get in the States is that I'm sure the governments have all this data that they're collecting about their citizens, but I think they're bound by law not to act on that data or do anything.
Yeah, right. I agree. They're bound by law. Like right now in Israel, the internal security service got permission to track people who have coronavirus, and also to track everyone who got in contact with them.
Yeah.
Right. So they just have this huge map where they have all the people who have the virus or who are now known. Like, let's say some person tests positively, then they look at all their movements back, and then they identify all the people who were in touch with them. Right. So this a bit, and they had to get the court order to actually be able to do that, and the government discussion. Well, but let's say in this particular situation, it's kind of justified. I'm even not 100% sure, but let's say it's because there's severe risk to public health. But having this capability is pretty scary.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was there 10 years ago, right? So I left the Marines in 2008. So the capabilities that they have weren't, there was no iPhones back then.
Yeah.
That's the world that I existed in was completely different than what they have today. I'm sure that with the amount of machine learning, and it's the same, but it's the same for Google, right? I just assume that like Google and the other companies have the same, or if not more, capabilities than what the government has.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, Google just has this for billions of people everywhere.
Exactly, and they voluntarily give up all that information.
I would say not knowingly. Not everybody understands what they're sharing, but yes, yeah, people are giving Google and Facebook like tons and tons of information. Hopefully now with all the scandals, the governments and the companies themselves will start to kind of self-regulate a little bit, but it's still scary. Let's put it this way, just to sum up the discussion so far. The state of privacy in general in the world is not good at all. It's getting worse all the time. Crypto, when it emerged in 2010, seemed to counter this movement, but it turned out that Bitcoin actually does not solve the problem and actually worsens it if you look at it soberly. And we at Beam, we're actually here to solve the privacy for crypto, while still keeping all the good qualities, without the scalability penalties that other protocol has, without the usability penalties that other protocols have. That's what we're building. And the vision is, again, not to do something subversive that is 100% private and not shareable and not kind of that is pure only for anarchy minded people. Right. It's more like saying, guys, the technology is here. You cannot stop it. You cannot stop the technology. So the privacy coins are here. Mimblewimble protocol is here. But we at Beam actually want to develop something that gives people privacy, but gives people a way to report, and is in that regard very similar to cash. Yes, we understand that you, dear governments, you don't like cash because you cannot control it. But again, guess what? It's crypto is here. You cannot stop it. So try to find a compromise.
Yeah. No, that is probably the best way to go down, and especially with the ability of Beam to have these auditable accounts where people can prove the transactions that they've made, if they want to take them to an auditor. I think it's not really available to anybody else. out there.
Yeah, that's the whole point. It's not like you choose to be public like in Zcash, because in Zcash you say, well, I'll be public, but then it's just Bitcoin all over again in
Mm-hmm.
terms of privacy. In Beam, no, nobody sees your transactions, but you can nominate an auditor, and then they can see, and they can share it in a convenient way, and then they can also see who you're trading with and see the justification for every transaction. I mean, exactly as you would do with a normal audit in a business environment.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, maybe that is the way forward, and maybe that is the best model for privacy, and it will just take some time for the regulators and everyone to catch up to see that this is the, I guess, best way for privacy to move. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely sure this is the way forward. Uh, we'll see how long it takes.
Yeah. Exactly. But I mean, again, it takes things build, and then all of a sudden they just appear, right? So I guess it's about laying the groundwork and getting a working product that has a solid user base behind it to talk about it and show people what's possible with it. So yeah. I guess, so you guys have been launched now for about a year. Like what's changed, and like, what have you guys learned in that year's time?
Well, we learned a lot of things about technology, about business. But most of all, I think we learned that being open, forthcoming, and hardworking pays off.
Yeah.
We've built an amazing community. It's not huge. It's probably 50, 60,000 people, but it's very dedicated. Throughout the whole time, we never engaged in any tactics, to buy people in this or that way, like some projects do airdrops or pay for users or things like that. We were very clear from the beginning that we're not doing any of those things. And this way we gathered a community of people who really care. And it's super supportive. I, I read the Telegram group every day, and the amount of enthusiasm that people have is just amazing. They care so much about the project, although they maybe just hold a small amount, but they like the project, they like the technology. So this is what we learned. We also learned that the crypto world is not like up all the time, right? It's not like things are getting better and better and better every day. No, there are ups and downs, and now is one of the more difficult periods. But we're ready for that. Yeah, as I said, we learned so much about technology. We learned that working together with other projects and being respectful, being cooperative pays off. If we talk about Grin, who we are in constant communication, about Zcoin, who are our friends, and with whose technology, who's one of whose privacy technologies named Lelantus, we have already adapted from Imblewimble. We're using, be it Litecoin, who we're talking to, and other guys. So my learning is that it's important to be open, cooperative, and minimize the amount of hate that unfortunately there is still a lot in the crypto community.
Right. Sure. I mean, I see it differently a little bit. I mean, I know that within the privacy space, all the people that are working on privacy coins are it's usually a pretty tight community, right? One is that the encryption underlying it is a tough beast to work with, and so it takes a certain person to want to go out and try to integrate that into a protocol. And also, it's different shades of gray, right? So, when we talk about the differences between Monero and Zcoin and everything else, we're really just talking about different encryption methods, but trying to achieve the same thing at the end of the day. So there is a kind of a shared goal in bringing about private confidential transactions.
Yeah, I agree. I totally subscribe to that. I think all the privacy projects are actually kind of fighting the same war together.
Yeah, because I don't know. I mean, I look at what the I look at what the Bitcoin maximalists do, right, and how they kind of try to bring everybody else down. But I don't see it as worthwhile at the end of the day, right? Is that a rising tide lifts all boats, and that the more that they are able to kind of engage people on teaching them, getting them started on understanding privacy, even if it's pseudo anonymous, that's really a start. And then from there, you can start to learn more about moving into different other models of privacy. So, going from Bitcoin to Zcash, and then from Zcash to like Beam or Ingren or some of the other ones that are out there. So I think it's a path to understanding more about privacy.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
So are you worried about the, I guess, general dissatisfaction of government officials against encryption in general? I know there's been some pushback in the United States recently over their there was a law that was trying to reduce the amount of encryption that's being used by companies. But overall, it's just a general movement to reduce the ability of people to use encryption, and also businesses to use encryption on the internet. And I mean, how do you see this going forward in this kind of playoff between companies that want to use encryption and then don't want to use encryption, or are being told not to use encryption by the U.S. government so they can track their users?
Well, from what I understand, there were several attempts, but they failed. This what was this name of this device that they wanted to plug in, or a chip that they wanted to use back in 2000s or even the 90s to be able to have a backdoor to any encryption protocol. I think some parts of the government will always want that, but if there is a healthy system, public debate, this will not happen. I think most of the people, definitely in the States, don't want to live in a police state where the government knows everything. So I hope it will not succeed, actually. Yeah. Because again, the government would always want to limit, or some parts, let's say not all of the government, but parts of the government will always want to limit the technology, and will always want to limit privacy, stating all kinds of very good reasons like national security and public health and blah, blah, blah. But it's actually our job as citizens to monitor that and not to let it happen too much. And I think now, with Snowden and with all the scandals with Facebook and all the others, more and more people understand the importance of privacy and advocate it and vote accordingly. So I'm optimistic. I still optimistic, although again, China, NSA, what I just told you about Israel, things are being taken away. But I think more and more people are aware of this possibility, of this desire of the government to get their nose into everything, and more people are, at least trying to put up a fight.
Right. I hope so, and I really hope that's where we're working towards in the future. I mean, I don't want to see any more erosion of the ability of people to use encryption in their daily transactions and communications. It's just not something that I want to see. So, I mean, it's really an evolving process, though, and I hope that we can have greater clarity as we go forward in the ability to, because essentially using encryption, right, is a free speech matter. Is that if you're able to use encryption, you're able to speak freely, and if you limit that, then you're limiting people's right to free speech.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the government's want that, but we shouldn't let that happen.
Exactly. So, well, cool. I think that probably covers most of what I wanted to cover on speaking about privacy, Alexander. Was there anything else you wanted to go over?
Well, no, I think I talked about Beam. No, but I think we're good. We're good overall.
Oh, cool. Well, Alexander, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate the chat and to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I could also add like maybe what are the next things that Beam is working on that maybe
sure.
a good.
Okay, yeah, sure. So, what are you guys working on at Beam for the next few quarters?
Yeah, thanks for this question. So, until the end of this year, we were actually building Beam as a coin, as a first layer protocol, and back in November, we released our first step towards a decentralized ecosystem that was the atomic swappability, right? Like this ability to exchange Beam for Bitcoin in a totally decentralized fashion. So that was the first step towards DeFi. Now, this year, our roadmap is actually to work on to lay the grounds for a fully confidential DeFi ecosystem based on Beam. And that includes bridges to other blockchain with the ability to trade, for example, ERC20 tokens or their confidential versions on top of Beam, eventually with the ability to create DeFi applications like lending, collateralized debt positions, and others on Beam. So we want to take this privacy to the next step from the transactional privacy that we have already delivered, and we are improving it, by the way, with additional privacy features, to distributed financing, the decentralized financing features, like I mentioned. So it's actually opening up the Beam ecosystem to more kinds of value, interfaces to other blockchains, and as I mentioned, eventually DeFi applications.
That's pretty cool. I guess that's responding to what people want, and I guess people have been moving towards with Ethereum, and then integrating that with confidentiality, right?
Yeah, right. Because Ethereum today has a lot of very interesting applications, but the state of privacy on Ethereum is even much worse than on Bitcoin, because you don't even need any special skills or equipment. You just log onto the into Etherscan or any of dozens of other sites and just see all the transactions of an address with all their holdings and everything, and it's kind of crazy.
Well, that's cool. I mean, and how long is this going to take to get rolled out?
Well, it takes what it takes. We'll probably have some things out this year, according to the roadmap, but it's a long process. Software development is really hard to put exact shipping dates to, especially if you're in such a novel industry. But the plans that I was talking about were actually for this year, so we should have a lot out by the end of the year.
Great. Well, it's cool. I'll be looking forward to it. That's cool. I think that's everything then. Alexander, thanks for coming on.
That's great. I actually have another call in like 3 minutes, so it's perfect timing.